So hello everyone, I am Prakhar Rai and from today we'll be learning some fundamentals of Python for beginners. And let me introduce myself a bit. So I am Prakhar Rai and I am currently studying in VIT Pune and pursuing my computer engineering, and currently I am in my second year. So without any further ado, and I also know programming languages such as C, Java, Python, Dart, etc, etc. But today our main focus is on Python, right? So we'll study what Python is first of all, and what in general a programming language is, as it is the first lecture. So the programming language is a language we communicate with our machines, right? Obviously, like we cannot command our machines in English or Hindi, right? Obviously. So that's why we need a particular language for our machines to understand, as it cannot understand other languages. So Python is one of them, and we try to give commands to our program with the help of languages like Python. So now why Python, if you ask, and why not C and everything? Obviously they are also important, but let me tell you that companies that use Python are this, which is presenting in the screen: Google, Microsoft, Amazon, etc, etc, etc. And why they use it? Because of the functionality that Python provides, because it does not have to write every code in it. And I'll just show you. Yes, these are the features of Python, right? So first of all, I want to highlight this point of where is it, easy to code. Yeah, that's all is right. And yeah, this large standard library. So what is it? Let's suppose I want to write a particular code which is already written in the form of library or in the form of any function, right? So I can call that function and use it again in my code instead of writing again and again and again, right? Obviously. So this is one of the features, and there are many features. Let's not talk about that first of all. So just I'll move to my PyCharm ID, as I'll be using this for demonstrating the code, and we'll not just look at the theory part, we'll simultaneously code as well so that you understand. I'll zoom it a bit. So first of all, I want to write something known as print. Okay, so just type it along with me if you want. Print, and then in opening and closing parenthesis, and in opening and closing quotes, I'll come to that. What are these things? Don't worry about that. Let's say hello world, a standard program which every first program the programmer writes, right? So first of all, if I run this code and show you what happens, you see here hello world get printed, right? So means first of all I commanded the hello world to get printed. So it is so simple in Python that we just have to write print, then in this opening and closing parenthesis, and opening and closing what you call double quotes. Just a second, it is reconnecting, I guess. Yeah, so what I was telling, yeah, so opening and closing parenthesis and opening and closing quotes, I have hello world, and hello world got printed. Similarly, you can write your name also, and that is your first program. Now what I want to tell is that, now let's suppose you study in math, right? Certain variables, let's even if you have not, it's okay. So I'll tell you that in further studies in mathematics, we see the concept like assume x, assume y, or whatever. So these are known as variables, right? So we also have a concept of variables in Python also. Let me give you a quick overview of it. Let's say I write x only. Let's take a variable known as x. X is equal to 5, let's say. So it is a pure mathematics. And if I write here print simply x, right? Not in double quotes, only x. I'll tell you why. And if I run it, you see 5 got printed. Now what I want to clear is that variables are like containers. Okay, variables are like containers. I have a what you say slide also if you want. Yeah, so again it is reconnecting, just a second. Till then, if I'm audible, you can read out the PPT. I'll wait for the connection. Okay, great. So variables are like you can say containers, okay, which are used to store certain values. Simply means that I have taken x is equal to 5, right? So that 5 got stored in x. Means suppose I have a container as a real life object, in that I can store balls, books, pen, any utensils or whatever. So what that container is doing is it is storing certain objects in it. Similarly, the variables store certain values inside them, like I have shown you here. So this 5 got stored in x, and then we can use this x. But you might be asking that why we need variables, but I can directly print 5, right? Let's suppose I remove this x is equal to 5 and I write simply 5 here, okay, and if I hit the run button, see 5 got printed as well. So why we need x is equal to 5 then x? The thing is, here the code was very short, I needed only to print 5. But let's suppose in real life world, when you are a programming champion, then you have to write certain codes which are very big, right? Then the use of variables come, as we have to store a value and again we can change it. For example, I'll give you the best example. Let's say x is equal to 5 only, right? Now if I print, let's say x plus 5 here, I'll come to what is plus. Obviously you know what is plus, but in the perspective of what you call it, operators, I'll tell you. But first of all, let me give you an example of why we need variables, right? So let's say I have these many lines of code, and here I write x plus 5, x plus 6, x plus 7 and x plus 8, let's say. Now if I just a second, it is yes. So now if I hit enter, so you see x plus 5, what was 5 plus 5 was 10, so here 10 will come. Then 5 plus 6 11, 5 plus 7 12, 5 plus 8 13. Sorry if I made mistake, but you got the point, right? So these are the sum of it. Now if someone told you that no, I want the value of x to be let's say 10 or let's say 7, so then I need to only change to one place, right? Then automatically these results will get changed. See, 12, 13, 14, you can calculate it. Obviously 7 plus 5 is 12. Now if I have not used the variable, let's say instead of x I had a hard-coded value such as 7, 8, whatever, like that, then I have to change it every time in my code, right? But instead of that, I can use the concept of variables and change it only one time. Then in my entire code of 100 to 200 lines of codes, it will automatically get changed and get rendered accordingly. Okay, so these are the variables. You can read out the PPT as well. So a variable is created the moment we first assign value to it. Okay, so a variable is the name given to a memory location. All the operation done on the variable affects that memory location. Now this is an important point, because as I have changed 7 here, let's suppose I change to 9 here. Okay, so 9 plus 5 should give me 14 at the first line. So let's check first of all. So yes, it gives 14. So now what happened actually, these variables have the memory location, and as soon as I changed this number, everything got changed right here, all the operations, because it affects the overall memory and it changes in the memory. That is why it is reflected in our print screen or console. That is why given to a memory location, all the operations done on the variable affects that memory location. Okay, so it is a basic unit of storage in a program. As I mentioned, you can always remember it as a container to store a value or a program. So a value store can be changed during the program execution. As I mentioned, whenever we execute, we can change the value according to our needs. Now moving to the next concept of what I was telling, this plus and all that. So these are known as operators, and first of all I'll remove this, or you can say comment out. In just a second, it is reconnecting. Okay, great. So sorry for the interruption. And the thing is that what I was telling, yes, operators. And before that, I would like to give you a concept of comments, as it is required here. So what are comments actually? Let's suppose I'll give you a great example. Let's suppose there are 100 lines of codes and I want to share my code with my friend, which he or she has to work on it. Means he or she has to write some more code in my code, right? Now to explain certain stuff to them, that do this, do that, insert some code after this line, before this line, any instructions I want to give to my fellow team members or friends, then I use comment. Why? Because let's say first of all I write that to my friend, okay, a message to my friend that write your code here, but this will give me an error, as you can see as the red lines. Also I'll show you by running also. So it says obviously invalid syntax. Syntax means this syntax whatever we are writing in Python. So this is a wrong, because the machine cannot understand what is this write your code here. It does not understand English, right? So I want to convey this to my friends, so I'll use the concept of comment. So I'll write hash before any statement. Now if I run it, the error is gone. Why it is gone? Because our program ignored this. Remember my word, this program ignored this particular statement. So whatever we write inside or after hash gets ignored, and I can write anything, like anything, and it will not give error. And I'll run it and show you. See, it does not give an error. So that is why concept of comments is used. But what, suppose I have 50 lines of comments only, let's say like this, many lines of comments, random comments. Now I cannot write hash every time, right? So that is why a concept of multi-line comment comes into the picture. Multi-line means obviously multiple lines, right? So to comment this out in a very short manner, you use triple single quotes. Triple single quotes means this 1, 2 and 3 at the start and 1, 2, 3 at the end. Simply I'll just give a space so that you can see it. See, these 3 single quotes and these 3 single quotes for at the start and at the end will comment this out. So if I run it again, it will not give me an error, obviously. So this is the multi-line comment. Also, if you don't want this actually, and you still have multiple lines, so there is a shortcut in our keyboard. What you can do, you can select this thing and you can press Ctrl plus forward slash. I repeat, Ctrl plus forward slash. So it automatically gives hash at the start. So I'll remove this particular thing, and this is fine for you, right? So now I was explaining you the concept of operators, as I wanted to comment this out. So I explained you comments before, because we use it in real life like this. See, I commented it. Now if I run my code, nothing will give me as an output. See, blank, because I have written so much things but it ignored it. Now we'll see in the fresh line what are operators. So as I mentioned, x is equal to 5, whatever. So let's say I write 5 plus 5 and then I print x, so it should give me 10. No magic in that, but I wanted to explain you because this is known as operators, and there is known as arithmetic operators, which consists of plus, minus, multiplying, divide, like that. You have studied it in basic mathematics, right? Obviously. So I'll comment this out and give the notes to you, like plus, minus, and multiply. In coding world or in programming world, we write multiply by the star symbol. This star is known as multiply. So if I write, let's suppose star here, 5 into 5, so it should give me 25, and it indeed gave me 25. And divide for this backward slash. Okay. And I guess in this multi-line comment here, I mentioned control plus forward slash. So sorry for that, it is control plus backward slash. That shortcut. Sorry, I misspelled it. Anyways, so these are arithmetic operators. So you know basic plus minus times divide, but I wanted to tell you an operator known as a modulo operator. Now for that, let me open a OneNote notebook. My handwriting will be very bad, I know, but it will be easier for me to explain. Okay, so I'll select a draw. Now what is a modulo operator? So first of all, modulo operator is designated by this percent symbol. Okay, so this is a different percentage from our mathematics, which we call it, right, 5% of 90 is this much. So that is a different percentage. This is known as a modulo operator. I'll write the spelling also. My handwriting will be bad, but it's okay. Modulo operator. Okay, I messed up this D. So modulo operator. Anyways, so what is this modulo operator? Let's say I have 5 divided by 3. Okay, we see in mathematics, right, 5 divided by 3. So how do we calculate 5 divided by 3, and how do we calculate the remainder of it? Let's say 5 then divide by 3. Okay, so we do like this, right? 3 ones are 3 and the remainder is 2, right? 5 minus 3 is 2. So now what is this 2? Very important point. 2 is the remainder of 5 divided by 3. 2 is a remainder of 5 divided by 3. So this modulo operator helps in finding out our remainders. Now instead of 5 divided by 3, if I write in our code 5 modulo 3, 5 modulo 3. So the meaning of this is that give me the remainder of 5 divided by 3. What is, I repeat, what is 5 modulo 3? It is the remainder of 5 divided by 3, which is 2. So the answer is 2. Okay, so let's see in our IDE as well. So I'll directly print, or maybe I'll store it in X only. Let's say 5 percentage 3. I spelled it percentage so you can recognize the symbol, but it is read as 5 modulo 3. And if I, just a second, it is reconnecting. Okay, so it got reconnected, and now I mentioned 5 modulo 3 and print X, right? So let's see what is the output. So the output is 2, and remember what we studied here. See, answer is 2, right? So because it calculated me the remainder. But now let's say I write 6 divided by 6 modulo 3. So the answer should be 0. Why it should be 0? First of all, I'll run it and show you because if I didn't get it will be a huge problem for me. Anyways, so 6 modulo 3 is 0. So why 0? First of all, let's check. So again I'll write it 6 modulo 3. So how do we do that? Again 6 divided by 3 like this, but it is divisible by 3 now. So 3 2s are 6 and the remainder is 0. So 6 modulo 3 will be 0, as you can see here. So if the two numbers are divisible, it will, the modulo of that will give us the answer 0. Now next we have that concept of interpreter versus compiler. Actually this is a theoretical part, so I'll first of all explain you that what is interpreter and what is compiler and what is the difference between this and what our Python uses actually. Okay, so first of all our Python uses interpreter. Okay, so I'll go it in my PDF. Okay, so see, Python is interpreted. I'll tell you what does that mean. So, and our C language use compiler. Now what are these? Suppose I have written these code, suppose this thing. Now machine can understand only the language of binary, that is 101. Means, let's say whatever code I have written, this print, this quote, and in that, means I'm talking about this print and all that, that also our machine cannot directly understand. Why? Because machine can only understand this language. See, 1 1 0 0 1 1 1 0 1, whatever, I'm writing it randomly. So this is the true, you can say, colors of our machine. Means it can only understand this language of binary. 1 and 0 are known as binary. So what happens, just a second, it is reconnecting. Okay, so it got reconnected. So I was explaining that machine can understand only 10110 or binary language. So this also machine cannot understand. So how is it printing our code? Is because of interpreter or compiler. But in Python we use interpreter. But I'll first of all explain you what is a compiler, right? So compiler, you can say, is converting our code into the machine code. That interface is known as compiler. Means I have written print print whatever, hi I am Prakhar, let's say. So hi I am Prakhar will get printed. But how did the machine understand? Because the language which we write, that is this print whatever, so this is known as a high level language, and this high level language is to be converted to a low level language for a machine to understand. And what is this low level language? That is 1011, or a language of binary. So compiler converts our code, makes it into an executable file. This is a very important point. Even the adult people don't know about this .exe. Means the c.exe file, but they don't know about it. So that .exe file, which I will show you in my VS Code, actually it is a C program, it's okay, but just to what you say, make familiar with it. See, in the left side we see dfs.exe. just focus on the exe and not the code, as it might make you worry. So .exe file is known as executable file. It is a shortcut for executable. So it makes our code executable to the language of binary or to low level language that our machine can understand and give us the output accordingly. So that is a compiler. But Python does not use compiler. I guess this statement is also wrong, because I'll explain you. It indirectly does, but I'll tell you what is the major difference in that. So basically, first of all, Python uses interpreter, and Python is interpreted. Now what is this? See, in this diagram, this is our source code. Source code means whatever the code I have written here. Okay, print, operators, whatever, this is the source code. Now this source code goes to the compiler, as I mentioned, right? And this compiler converts into the bytecode into the virtual machine. But as Python is interpreted, you see the whole orange block. So interpreter consists of this, or you can say interpreter works compiler plus bytecode, and plus means interpreter needs only interpreter to convert our source code directly into the machine code. Otherwise it should take two steps, but interpreter helps our source code to get into the machine code directly, right? And by running the code we can see the now this is the major difference. Now in this diagram we will get cleared about the difference. Now see how compiler works. This is our source code. This source code got into the compiler, and that compiler converted it to the machine code. Then machine code gave us the output like this, right? Means gave 0 as the output, gave 12 13 as the output, or whatever. Where is it? My PDF. There are so many tabs open, it's okay. So yeah, so compiler converts into machine code and then gives us the output. And now how interpreter works? See, one step is eradicated from it. Means from the source code directly it gives to the interpreter and directly it gives the output, right? Means internally all the things are happening. This machine code is also getting transferred, means machine code is also getting converted here also, but it is inside this block. That is why we have two diagrams. Okay, hope it is clear. Python is object oriented, don't worry about that for now. Just as it is the first lecture, we'll try to limit our understanding. And just a second. Okay, now let me comment this out. See why I am commenting, because I don't want this code to interfere my next codes. So see, it has a real life application as well, anyways, for the teachers especially. Now what are the various data types? Just a second, it is reconnecting. Yeah, so reconnection successful. Anyways, so I was talking about the data types, and what are the data types and what is the need for it. We'll try to look at that first. Now I have written here, or previously, x is equal to 5, right? So what is this 5? This 5 is an integer, so I'll write it in comments. It is an integer, obviously, right? 1 2 3 0 7, even -1, -2, -3, these all are integers. But what if I write y is equal to 6.432, whatever? So you have studied in mathematics, it is known as a decimal number, right? 6.43 or whatever such numbers are known as decimal numbers, but in the programming world it is known as a float data type. Float, I'll write it in brackets, decimal, so that you come to understand. Okay, so this is a float data type. Now let's say z. You can name any variable. Okay, there is a naming convention, but for now just try to think it like, even I can name the variable like Spider-Man. Kids watching this videos, you can write Spider-Man is equal to, let's say, 10. Okay, and if I print Spider-Man now, okay, so 10 should get printed, right? So let's see, 10 got printed because this 10 got stored in Spider-Man and Spider-Man got printed, which is 10. So you can name it anything, but there are some naming conventions as well, as you cannot start from a number. Means if I give 1 to Spider-Man as my variable name, then it will throw me an error. See, invalid syntax. But if I give number after, like Spider-Man 1 2 3 4, and here 1 2 3 4, okay, then it will not give me an error. See, it printed 10. So there are certain naming conventions. For now, just remember that you cannot start with number. We'll look the naming conventions as well for a variable or for an identifier, which is yet another concept. So don't worry about it. Just try to digest certain concept which I am telling and focus on that first. Now I'll comment this out for a reference. So I was talking about a data type. So this is a float or a decimal data type. This is an integer data type. Now I would like to mention a string data type. So let's say z is equal to, now if you remember, we printed hello world. I deleted it or what? It's okay, I'll write it again. Our first program, I deleted it, shame on me. Anyways, so hello world. So if you remember it correctly, this I have written it in double quotes, right? Then I have written any sentence I want. So I'll again comment this out. So this is known as a string data type. Why? Means let us write it in double quotes, means starting double quotes and ending with double quotes. Now I can write anything, that let's say whatever, I love Lord Krishna, let's say. Okay, so now this is a string or a dialogue. We have seen movie dialogues, or we have seen in English literature as well, right? The dialogues are delivered in double quotes, or you have seen it in quotations on your WhatsApp status or whatever. If someone gives a quotes, it is written in quotes, obviously, that is why it is known as quotes. So whatever, I can write it inside it like this. Now So I love Lord Krishna is a string because it is written in double quotes, and that is stored inside Z. So if I print Z, this will get printed. I will love Lord Krishna. So no doubt in that, but I explained it so that it is another data type. Where is the hash? Okay, here it is. So string, should I write data type here? Data types. Okay, so integer data type, float data type, which is in our mathematics world known as decimal, and this is known as a string data type. We also have a new data type known as a list. I don't think I should explain it, but I'll give you a glance of it. Okay, now first of all, consider an real life example. Okay, I'll try to give the best example. We have our whatever, we move to some sites, let's say. In that we log in and sign up, right? So there are so many users logging in and sign up, right? So let's say we have a big container, right? So in that, let's say first user logged in, second user logged in or signed up, whatever you can take for now, third user, fourth user, and so on. There are so many users, but let's say for every user I cannot create a variable to store them, right? Let's say I have 10,000 users, so I cannot be creating 10,000 variables to store each user. Instead, what I can do, I can have a data type or kind of a list, you can say, okay, in which my users are all present, like 1 2 3 4 and so on. So if I have this functionality of having kind of a list which stores many variables, not variables, values of the variables, means it is functioning like a bigger, sorry, it is reconnecting, just a second. Okay, great. So I'll take 5 more minutes, don't worry about it. And so I wanted to tell that if I have a bigger container which can store multiple values in it, as I mentioned, container is something which can store values, right? But here we can store one value in one variable. So how about a bigger container which can store multiple values in it? What am I doing? But you got the point. Okay, I'm making it a mess actually, so let me remove it. Okay, so let's have a bigger container in which we have users, let's say. Okay, for the real life example, these are the users and it is fit in the one container. So do we have a data type like this in Python? Yes, we have it. We have it in C as well, known as arrays. In Python we call it lists. That's why I mentioned while explaining, what if we have a list? So the data type name is list. Okay, great. So let's say I may name it a variable. What should I name it? Let's say Prix. So Prix is my nickname, so don't worry about that. And let's say in Prix I store a list, okay, which has certain values in it. Now it can be anything of any data type which I mentioned above, right? Now this list can have a integer, a float, or a string, and this current state is known as an empty list. Okay, so just give it a quick glance, don't worry about the complexities. First of all, I'll remove this Spider-Man anyways. So 1 2, even you can write in double quotes here, whatever, maybe zebra, comma, again you can have a string, now in this you can have a various data types of float as well. As I mentioned, it can have any data type, right? So I mentioned it can have any data type, so can it have a list inside a list? Means this here, and then again 1 2 3. Yes, it can have, but for now let us reduce the complexity, and we'll see it in the next lecture, that how can we have list inside a list and all that stuff. But for now, just understand that prix is a list data type which stores integer, string, again a string, and a float. So what if I print prix? So if I print prix, the whole list should get printed. See, it got printed. 1 2 zebra, 4.5 whatever, and prakhar whatever. Okay, so these are the various data types. I'll revise today's lecture a bit, and we'll see it in the next lecture about more how can we access each elements in this, how can we access only prakhar inside this particular list and not everything, how can I only print this 4.562 and all those questions, how can we have a list inside this list, and what are more data types and all that stuff we'll look it into. But first of all, that's enough for today's lecture, and I'll revise it very quickly. So we saw print, simple. How do we print a particular word? Simply by writing print. This is how Python is very easy and useful syntax. And inside this print we have double opening and closing parenthesis, and we can write in double quotations anything which we want, like this, Prakhar and I love Lord Krishna, and this is known as a string data type. Now next we saw what are variables. So variables are like containers which are used to store the value. Then next we saw operators. What are operators? These plus, minus, times, divide, which is also known as assignment operator, and this is known as a modulo operator. Modulo operator. Okay, this is known as a modulo operator, and this plus, minus, times, divide you are familiar with. Then we looked it into what is the difference between compiler and interpreter, right? That was the best diagram I could show you, and why we learn Python and all that. Where is it? Yes, so this diagram I was talking about, how compiler and interpreter are different, indirectly different, as interpreter can work one step less than a compiler, but the major thing was that it can convert high level language to a low level language, or into the language of 1 0 or binary which the machine can understand, right? Then we saw the data types which I told you, this integer data type, float data type, string data type. This is known as a list. Okay, and that is it for today. So we'll see more about lists in the next lecture. Thank you for listening. Bye bye, take care.